So this sermon is part 2 of a series entitled Forgiveness as a Path to Peace. Last week, we explored the question, why forgive? And we discussed what is forgiveness and what isn't forgiveness. And today we will consider how to forgive. So first of all, I want to thank you all for being here, because forgiveness is not the first topic that people want to talk about. And it's actually often the last thing that people want to do. Last week, we spoke about a group called the Forgiveness Project that offers radical forgiveness. And they have a podcast. And their podcast is called The F Word. They had that in mind in realizing how challenged most people are by the word forgiveness. So as we are doing this service together and we're exploring forgiveness, I invite you, if that word doesn't resonate with you at any point, to consider these phrases: let go or release. Let go or release. So I wonder how many of you have given any thought to the questions I left you with last week. And the questions were, if you don't remember, and for those that are newcomers this week, the questions were: is there something standing between you and your experience of peace? If there is someone that you would like to experience forgiveness with, who is that? Who is that being in your life or that group? What would you like to let go of? And is there a burden you are carrying you would like to put down? So please keep these in the back of your mind today as we go through our talk. So I'd like to begin with one of my stories. Well, it's not my story, this one. It's the story of a colleague of mine, and her name is Hani Getter. And Hani is quite an extraordinary woman. She is a minister and a rabbi. And she shared with me a story last week about forgiveness, and she told me about her daughter. Her daughter, when she was 7 years old, was hit by a motorist when riding a bicycle. And it was clear that at the time of day and the direction that the motorist was driving in, that motorist must have been blinded by the sunset as she was driving. And when this motorist hit Hani's daughter, the little girl flew off the bicycle and landed on her windshield. And the motorist was a woman, swept her in her arms, brought her to the ground, to the sidewalk, laid her down, yelled, "Somebody call 911." Immediately got back in her car and drove away. The trauma Hani's daughter experienced was massive. For the first year after the accident, she was in and out of a wheelchair, and it took about a year for her to recover from her physical injuries. The second year she spent recovering from her academic time. She had to recover from the time she had missed school, obviously. And that's a big hit for a 6-year-old. And then the following year, she was diagnosed with PTSD. Hani's daughter did not leave her side. She went with Hani to work, and she went with Hani to school. So they've realized what affected Hani's daughter the most wasn't the car hitting her, but being left alone on the ground. That was her big trauma. She had repeated nightmares about this. Wow, right? So 4 years after the accident, Hani, on the eve of Yom Kippur, the eve of Yom Kippur, she had walked into a grocery store. And while she was in there was a woman that was repeatedly looking at her and crying. She would look at Hani and cry, and look at Hani and cry. So eventually Hani walked over to the woman and said, "I'm sorry to intrude, but are you okay?" And the woman said, "Do you know who I am?" And Hani responded, "No, I have no idea who you are." And the woman said, "I am the person I am the woman who ran over your daughter. Can you forgive me? And Hani responded, yes, of course I forgive you. And she left the store. And Hani thought to herself, how hard it must have been for this woman to see me and to ask for forgiveness. Hani realized that day that the deeper work of forgiveness was not forgiving her, but she forgiving herself. Hani said that was the lesson she had learned. See, Hani realized that she could not help her daughter, could not be present to her daughter until she worked through this forgiveness herself. And she decided, and well, this is Hani's method for working through forgiveness, is to light a candle every day and either say, I forgive you, or if she doesn't feel like forgiving the person, light a candle and say, I want to forgive you. And on those really difficult days, she would light a candle and say, I want to forgive you. Hani feels in her teachings that self-forgiveness overrides everything. Louise Hay, famous forgiveness teacher, shares the following. She says, forgiveness is a gift to yourself. It frees you from the past experiences, and past relationships. It allows you to live in present time. And when you forgive yourself and others, you are indeed free. That Aramaic song that we listened to open our services today was actually the Lord's Prayer. And it includes one of the most famous Christian teachings on forgiveness. And since its original Aramaic, that phrase on forgiveness has been translated endless ways and in endless languages. And we are probably, especially those exposed to a Christian tradition, would be familiar with the one we hear in English, which is, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. But here is an alternative also in English. Erase the inner marks our failures we make as we scrub our hearts of others' faults. Erase the inner marks of failures we make as we scrub our hearts of others' faults. There is a strange quality in our spiritual psyche that keeps balance. It seems the more we judge others, the more we judge ourselves. The more we forgive others, the more we forgive ourselves. I have no idea why this works the way it does. My yoga teacher, or my yogi, I'd like to call her, her name is Rudrani, and she is outstanding. She is a sage of wisdom, 82 years old, and teaches dozens of people on a daily basis. And she shares this wisdom. She says, we are all born and exist with a critic who resides in our minds. This critic sits there and criticizes us and others, and primarily us, though. And our task is not to listen to this voice. Forgiveness quiets that voice. Psychologists generally define forgiveness as the following: a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. So let us move into how to possibly forgive. Here are 7 steps or tools that may be helpful in your process of considering forgiveness, or letting go, or releasing, whichever way you would like to look at this. So here's tool number one. When is enough suffering enough? If you have lived as long as I have, there have likely been times in your life where you wanted to let go of something or forgive, but you just couldn't. Not until you were ready. Either circumstances outside of you needed to change to promote forgiveness, or something within you needed to change to promote forgiveness. Often it is when is enough suffering enough. Forgiveness happens when your desire to be free of personal suffering becomes stronger than your desire to hold on to the resentment, wounds, or grievances you are suffering from. In the words of Nelson Mandela, resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it will kill your enemies. Number two, the decision to forgive. Forgiveness is first and foremost a decision. First step in forgiveness is the conscious desire to want to change your experience of suffering from within. Even if you can't do it yet, like in the story Hani shared, lighting her candles, saying, I want to forgive. The decision to forgive in no way justifies the actions that caused wounding, nor does it mean you have to seek out those that have harmed you. It is the want to release that burden. So here are the subtle tools or overt tools that help us to move in that direction. The first one, and this has been shared with me, especially these last few weeks, from several people that have had to do massive forgiveness in their life, they have said that humility was the lens that had helped them. Humility is a lens from which we use to focus, helps us not to feel superior to another. Humility softens our judgment of ourselves. And with true humility, we see the imperfection in others as we see it in ourselves. It softens our hearts. The fourth tool or step is gratitude. For many forgiveness teachers see gratitude as the natural path to forgiveness and also to happiness. When people do daily gratitude prayers or meditations, their consciousness changes and their attachment to the person or tragedy or the offense that was behind their suffering loosens. For you cannot feel gratitude and lack at the same time. These cannot simultaneously exist within our consciousness. Number 5 is acceptance. Acceptance is the giving up the hope that the past could be different. It's accepting the past for what it was and not spending our time saying and thinking, I wish if only it was this way, or it should have been that way. Acceptance is not suggesting that we accept a behavior that is not acceptable in our lives. But as in the Serenity Prayer, it is looking at acceptance in a different lens. In the prayer as it goes, and I know most of us are familiar with it, God's grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Number 6, the choice to shift your perspective and the power to shift your perspective. There may be another way to look at what has been the source of pain. The Course in Miracles states that a miracle is a shift in perception. A miracle is a shift in perception. Marianne Williamson shares the following practice to help shift perception. She suggests that you take 30 days to either pray for the person or the situation that you feel caused you pain and send your best intentions or wishes to them. This is a difficult call, but I'm sharing her thought and her suggestion. She says one or two things will happen. I mean, if you believe in collective consciousness, if you believe in that, then maybe something will change in that person or in the consciousness of this planet. But certainly, if you do this in 30 days, something will change in you. That is hard work. And number 7, and the final step, would be recognizing your own wholeness and recognizing that you are not broken. And forgiving others validates your wholeness. As in the first of the Unitarian principles, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, we are called to recognize the original goodness within ourselves and within others. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself. That's something to chew on, isn't it? This has been quite an experience for me these last few weeks of exploring forgiveness. It's a wonderful dialogue to be in with friends, family, and colleagues. So I'd like to ask you at this point to come together with me in a visualization, in an exercise. So please, let's take a moment and shift our energy. Let's get comfortable in our chairs. Let's put down our pens if we're taking any notes. And let's close our eyes. I invite you to close your eyes and take a few moments just to breathe naturally. Now, in your mind's eye, I'd like you to imagine yourself standing by a table in a garden. Be outdoors. And in front of you on this table is a very heavy stone. So heavy that if you lift it, you could lift it, but it's going to be difficult to hold for a long time. Now reach over and lift the stone and hold it to your chest as you stand there. And once you are holding that stone, imagine placing that which you would like to forgive, let go of, or release into that stone. Imagine moving that tragedy, that offense that you carry from within your body into this stone. Feel it move from your body, out of your body, out of your throat, out of your chest, out of your mind, out of your heart, into this object in front of you, in your arms. Feel the weight of that stone and the awareness that those are not in your body. It is in this stone. And when you are ready, put the stone either down on the table, you could drop it, or you could push it away from your chest and your mind like a shot put, but release it from you. Feel the lightness now. Feel the peace in your body. Feel the emptiness. Feel the lightness in your heart, in your mind, in your chest. And the awareness that this is not in you. This is outside of you. It is still there. It is in that stone. You are not making believe it didn't exist. You are not negating its existence or its absolving it of whatever it has done. It is not within you anymore. It is not yours to carry. It is away. If you need to address those injustices anytime you want, you could go and lift that stone. It is there. It now all resides in that space. Its new home is the stone. So take a deep breath and shake off your arms and your body and come back into the room. And come back into our space. Your suffering is now in that stone. The injustice resides in that stone. The tragedy and the offense is in the stone. And it's yours to go to if you need to address it. Please keep this practice with you at any time you feel you're suffering deeply. This is your practice to take with you if you are suffering. It's your practice to share with those you love if they are suffering. To just give them a respite from that suffering that exists within us when we carry these burdens. Thank you for rolling up your sleeves today and doing this very difficult work. T.D. Jakes shares the following quote. He says, "I think the first step to understand is to understand that forgiveness does not exonerate the perpetrator. Forgiveness liberates the victim. It's a gift you give to yourself." May the words of forgiveness and the thoughts we've shared today and last week create healing within you and within your heart and your spirit. May it be a source of that. And may that peace, may that source of peace within you be yours to touch upon whenever you need to. And may it drift from your heart and your existence and your soul into the space and the consciousness of this earth. For we need it profoundly. Bless you. Amen, Ashe, and may it be so.